So are we ready to go?
Yes, ready to go. I'm turn off my phone in order to have just you with the phone. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I'm really pleased to be able to join you today for this presentation. I'm speaking to you from my home in Galway on the west coast of Ireland, and my thanks to Giuliani for the invitation to talk to you about promoting population mental health and well-being, because this is a topic that's very close to my heart, and I understand that you have now a big interest in this in Brazil as well. So in today's presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about reframing the challenge of improving population mental health and well-being, and why we need to look at new ways of doing this and new approaches. In the talk, I'm going to focus specifically on adopting a health promotion approach and what that means, bringing a clear focus on strategies for mental health promotion alongside strategies for prevention and the treatment of mental ill health. And we'll also look at some examples of effective evidence-based strategies for mental health promotion that have been found to be effective, can be feasibly implemented, and do make a real difference to people's lives. And we look at the need for really quite a broad-based approach in terms of how we can adopt a whole of government and a whole of society approach to promoting population mental health. So to start, for mental health promotion can be easily implemented and do make a real difference to people's lives. I'm getting a broad-based approach in terms of.
I think we are having
a whole of society approach to promoting population mental health.
Sorry. Leo, please. Léo, por favor, Léo, está tendo problema. Alguém está com o canal aberto, por favor? E está aparecendo o Zoom junto com o YouTube. Ok?
Okay, should I continue?
Yes, you continue, please. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, we had some feedback, and so hopefully we'll be okay. This approach to mental health has really been pioneered by the World Health Organization, who as far back as 2000 talked about the need to adopt a public health approach. Here, looking at the fact that mental health problems and difficulties are on the increase globally, but the treatment approaches on their own, while really important, are not enough to bring about real change at a population level. To do that, we need a comprehensive public health approach, which looks at the promotion of good mental health alongside the prevention and treatment and recovery of mental health problems and mental disorders. So this is very similar to what would be used in relation to cardiovascular health and other non-communicable diseases, where we need to look at how we can have early intervention, prevention and promotion alongside effective treatment. So this is really a paradigm change in thinking about mental health, because it means we bring a broader understanding to what mental health is, and particularly focus on the health part of the continuum. So that mental health is a positive construct. It's a positive resource for life and something that we need to protect and promote. It's also very much interrelated with physical health, hence the WHO slogan, "There is no health without mental health." So mental and physical health are much more interrelated, perhaps, than has been recognized. And if we want to look at population mental health, we need to look at what strategies will lead to the greatest gain for the greatest number of people. So that means, how do we promote mental health at a population level, not just at the individual one-to-one level? And for this, we need to move beyond the mental health services. We need to move beyond clinics and hospitals to look at the settings where people live their lives. So in the community, in their homes, in schools, and in workplaces. And this is where we look at people's mental health potential and how that can be developed. So this is what I mean when I talk about reframing the challenge of improving mental health. So to do that, as I said, we look at mental health very much as a positive concept, and the WHO definition here highlights the fact that mental health is a state of emotional and social well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can manage the normal stresses of life, can work effectively, and is able to play a part in his or her community. So emotional and social well-being, a critical resource for everyday living. Unfortunately, we have seen increased focus on positive mental health and studies and research as to what that is and what it means. I'm looking here at work by Corey Keyes from the US, by Felicia Huppert in The Science of Wellbeing, and also from Carl Riff and his associates from Positive Psychology. So they look at mental health as being made up of at least two aspects: a sense of subjective well-being and satisfaction with one's life, things are going well, but also positive functioning, engagement and social well-being in the context of one's everyday life. So these are kind of how we come to understand what mental health means. And I think interestingly here, Corey Keyes' concept of flourishing, and you will have to see what is the Portuguese translation of that, but it really means to grow and to develop to the best of one's potential. And that means abilities across growing psychologically as well as physically, emotionally, intellectually, socially and spiritually. So it's very much a holistic approach to positive mental health. There's an interesting report was produced by Professor Michael Marmot and his colleagues from London, and it was commissioned by the WHO and the Gulbenkian Foundation in Lisbon. And it looks at the social determinants of mental health. And I think this is important because very often we think of mental health as being determined by an individual's psychology and their experiences, but in fact, it is also determined by where we live our lives. So here we look at the fact that mental health and many common mental disorders are shaped to a great extent by the social, economic, and physical environments in which people live. And we have to pay attention to that. So if we want to promote good mental health, it means we need to improve people's conditions of daily life, their environments, their social, their economic, their physical environments. And of course, this is way beyond the remit of just the mental health sector. It means we need a whole of government approach and we need a whole of society approach so that we can put in place comprehensive actions that are universal and available to people across the life course. And that was really quite a significant move forwards in terms of how we look at promoting population mental health, because it really means that policy making at all levels of governance and across different sectors that traditionally we might have not have associated with mental health, but these can really make a positive difference to mental health outcomes. So when we talk about mental health promotion, then we put an emphasis on addressing these social determinants of mental health. And that means we need action at multiple levels. So we need action definitely at strengthening individuals and families in terms of promoting life skills, social and emotional skills, enhancing resilience and coping strategies. These are really important for us all. We also then look at strengthening communities, how we can strengthen a sense of connectedness, ensuring that there is social inclusion and participation for all and that nobody is left out. In terms of our health services, it also means that we need to reorient them, not only to deliver effective treatment and effective rehabilitation, but also to deliver mental health promotion and prevention. And this is the aspect of our services that are probably least well developed. At a broader level, at a social level, we also need to look at addressing what are known as the structural barriers to mental health. And here we look at elements of our culture. It could be in terms of, is there a sense of equity? Is there a sense of social justice? Are our economic policies ensure equity? These are also really important in terms of population mental health. So we talk then about a mental health in all policies approach, not just in our mental health strategy or in our health policy, but across a broad range of policies. Okay. So this kind of approach is very much represented in current policy frameworks. If we look at the WHO's Global Mental Health Action Plan, it talks about the essential role of mental health in achieving health for all. And it emphasizes the need for comprehensive strategies for promotion, prevention, treatment, and recovery, which needs to be really implemented in a whole of government way, to protect and promote the mental well-being of all citizens, because we all have mental health promotion needs, every one of us. So to make sure that that's done for everybody. And also that the responsibility for this extends across all sectors and government departments, not just within mental health sector. So we're really looking at mainstreaming mental health into these broader policies, and that has been reflected in a number of national policy and regional policy frameworks. So here I have a graph here, which was developed in Australia, and I think it's a useful one in terms of seeing where does promotion sit in the spectrum of services. So if we look at the right end of this graph, we can see populations with disorders. So this is where a lot of our efforts are focused, and even there, many of our services struggle to meet the demand. So populations with disorders, to ensure that there is appropriate treatment and recovery from mental ill health, optimal management, etc. So that's usually within our mental health services. If we go one step behind that, this is looking at when people present with symptoms. So it could be symptoms of depression, anxiety, psychosis. And here we want to look at early diagnosis and appropriate intervention at an early stage. And often this takes place in primary care at the first point of contact. So there needs to be appropriate referral to specialist services. If we go one step beyond that, we then look at strategies for populations at higher risk. So here we might know that certain groups in the population are at higher risk, or they may be because of life experiences, stressful life events. And in this case, then we need to know how we can reduce that risk and avoid full-blown problems from developing. And this is very much prevention. This is prevention of anxiety, prevention of depression, prevention of suicide for those populations at higher risk. And today I'm focusing at the other end, which is starting with notionally healthy populations. These are people who are not presenting with mental health problems, but may indeed be struggling with different aspects of our lives, as we all do at certain stages. And the big question we ask here is, how do we protect mental health? How do we build people's resilience? And how do we maintain good mental health and supportive environments for mental health, so that when children go to school, they don't experience bullying and negative school experience that impacts on their mental health. And so this is the area of health promotion. So you can see within this where promotion, prevention, treatment, and rehabilitation sit. Another way of showing it is the next graph again, which was the top half of this diagram was produced by the Institute of Medicine in the US in the 90s to show where prevention sits in relation to treatment and rehabilitation. And you can see that on the top half. But what I did was I looked at elaborating this to say we also need to look at mental health promotion. I suppose what's below the waterline, what's not presenting at our services. How can we enhance resilience? How can we empower people to look after their mental health? And how can we make sure that there is supportive environments for people's health at a societal level? So this is mental health promotion, and this is what we're focusing on here today. More recently, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and I think, this is in a very important framework for global development. And for the first time, mental health was actually explicitly referenced within these goals. And that was really quite an important achievement. So if we look at goal 3, which was to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages, it explicitly references the need to promote mental health and well-being. And so that's really important because it says that mental health can contribute to all the other goals, but it also says that all the other goals are important for mental health. Access to good education, to gender equity, reducing poverty, access to a sustainable and a healthy environment. So it showed the interconnectedness and put mental health very much into a broader frame. Likewise, in relation to all of our global experience with the pandemic, with COVID-19, I think it's very clear the impact that this has had on people's mental health, both for those who already had pre-existing conditions, but also for those who hadn't, and that the kind of increased stress around the pandemic and what that's meant for people has really highlighted the need for mental health promotion at a population-wide level. And I think that's going to be more obvious as we go into the post-COVID recovery phase. So there we've made the case for mental health promotion, what it is and where it focuses. So now I want to move on to look at how we can do this. What's the evidence? What are the strategies? And I suppose the good news is that there has been quite a lot of effort in pulling together evidence that promoting mental health actually does lead to lasting benefits for improved health and well-being of individuals, of their families, and of society. And the Global Action Plan by WHO really kind of endorses that. So when we promote mental health, we enhance the protective factors for good mental health and well-being. We reduce the risk factors for mental and behavioral disorders. And we also lead to positive benefits across a range of social, economic, and health outcomes, be that in terms of doing better in school, doing better in work, doing better socially, and our physical health benefits as well. So we have convincing scientific evidence, but also strong social and economic case for investing in the promotion of population mental health and well-being. In the next half of the talk, I'm going to look at some kind of priority interventions that can be implemented and sustained at a reasonable cost while generating clear health and social gains. So I'm going to look at interventions across the life course. So looking from infancy to older age, and that can be delivered across different settings and delivery platforms. And then I'm going to look also highlighting those interventions for which there's evidence of their effectiveness and also of their cost effectiveness and their feasibility to be delivered across different cultures in an acceptable way. So in this, I'm going to draw on some work that we have done working with WHO across and different government agencies in pulling together sentences from across high income, middle income, and low income countries. So the reports are there, and you can have a look at those later in your own time. But we have, like a lot of the times, we're saying, well, look, where's our best bet if we're going to invest in strategies? You know, where are the ones that we really know are going to make a difference? So a lot of the evidence on this we've collated in these various reports, but also in this textbook at the bottom, which was published just in November of last year, Implementing Mental Health Promotion. And it's the second edition, actually. So we've updated a lot of the information with my colleagues, Alicia Clark, Inga Peterson, and Rachel Jenkins. And we have brought together case studies from across the globe in terms of the implementation of effective programs. And so there's further details of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of highlight what I think are some of those priority interventions and just give you some examples of programs. I'm not going to name all the programs, but just some of the programs that have been shown to work across different countries and have had multiple evaluation studies done on them. So first we start right at the beginning. Give every child a healthy start in life. So here we're looking at promoting infant and maternal mental health. And this starts right at kind of prenatal and postnatal care services, and making sure that there's a focus on social and emotional development of the child and the mental health of the new mother. And here we're looking at both parenting programs and home visiting programs where nurses or other professionals go into the homes of new mothers and work with them in a very empowering way and strengths building approach to develop effective parenting. And here they put an emphasis on the kind of the bond, the attachment between the mother and the child. They look at the social and emotional development of the child and how that can be encouraged. And we look at this in terms of universal for all parents, but especially for those women and children who are at higher risk, like teenage parents, mothers with postnatal depression, and those who are at risk of intimate partner violence. The evidence is very strong around the impact of these programs, and particularly some research has followed the children up until they're adults to look at what impact it has. And what we see is that from the high quality programs, you see improved child development and parenting skills, you see reduced behavioral problems, improved maternal health and social functioning. And in fact, cost effectiveness studies have shown that for every dollar invested in these programs, there's a $23 return, because there is a reduced need for services, and both the children and the parents are doing better. And very importantly, those at risk are making the most gains. So these are just some examples of the programs. And as I said, in the textbook, there's more detail on these, like the Nurse Family Partnership Program from the US. Community Mothers is in fact a program from Ireland, which is delivered by mothers in the community rather than trained nurses. So we have examples of programs by both family nurses, but also by trained community workers. And so here the key is to kind of get these mainstreamed into services so that we can scale them up and make sure that they reach those families at higher risk and that the support that's given is proportionate to the need. Next, we move up the life course. We look at children aged 3 to 6. And here we look at giving every child a head start in life, promoting child mental health development through preschool education. Here emphasizing the fact that access to high quality preschool is really important for young children, and especially where we can incorporate a focus on children's social and emotional well-being alongside their cognitive development and their readiness for school. And here there are some really good examples of structured programs, very much child-centered initiatives with a supportive educational environment and good strong linkage in with parents. The evidence here is very strong around the long-term positive outcomes from these types of preschool programs. They lead children who receive these, they do better in school, and they're more likely to do better in life and be in employment and better paid. There's also greater benefits for those children at higher risk and children from quite disadvantaged backgrounds. So therefore, the programs have the potential to reduce inequities due to child poverty and poor health, because they level the playing pitch for those children. Again, evidence of a very strong economic investment here, where the benefit to cost ratio is like over 17 to 1. So for every dollar invested, there is over $17 return. And examples of these programs would be like Head Start Ready. And that's a combination of the Head Start program plus the preschool program. And it's really looking at good quality preschool education. And I think key to this is that we have supportive policy at a government level, but also the training of preschool staff to implement these. And clearly, wider measures on child poverty are also very necessary to support this. Moving beyond young children, then we look from 3 to 16 years of age and looking at supporting families in promoting their children's mental health and well-being. So here, strengthening parenting for school-going children, access both to universal parenting programs for everybody, but also more targeted ones for parents of children with conduct disorders or behavioral problems. And again, strong evidence of positive outcomes in that these programs reduce child abuse and neglect, they reduce conduct and emotional problems, psychological distress for both the parents and the children. And again, the targeted programs for children with conduct disorders are very cost effective in terms of the return, because they very much reduce the risk of crime and children ending up in the criminal justice system. Here are some examples. There's quite a few of these programs, but these are Strengthening Families program, the P parenting program, Incredible Years, and others. And there's a lot of programs across high, low, and middle income countries that are found to be really effective and make a difference. P is available online, and it's a whole suite of programs for different age groups and different situations, and likewise with Incredible Years. So these, again, supportive policies and family support is quite important to their implementation, plus staff training, and those programs which have multi-components actually can have quite wide-ranging impact. Next, we go to schools, which is, of course, a very important setting for mental health promotion. And here we talk about social and emotional learning programs, because teaching and learning is the business of schools. And we look at how young children can be taught social and emotional skills for life and how their resilience can be enhanced. Here we look at the need for what we call a whole school approach. That is the teaching of social and emotional skills, but in a very coordinated and sequenced way, and that the policies in the school are supportive of children's development in this sense. There is very strong evidence internationally on the impact of social and emotional learning programs in schools for a diverse range of young people from very different cultural and economic backgrounds. We know, for example, from large-scale reviews that these programs improve academic engagement and performance. Children do better in school and they learn more effectively. We get enhanced positive social behaviours, reduced problems such as aggression and bullying, reduced emotional distress, such as stress and depression. And also there's quite good evidence around targeted interventions for those children who are at higher risk. So, for example, in relation to depression and anxiety, and also in relation to suicide. So both for universal, for all children, as well as children more at need. And again, there's good economic case here. These programs are not costly to implement, and there's a range between 11 to 25 to 1 return in terms of investment from school programs. Here I'm just giving you a sample of programs that are available, like the Positive Action, the US program, Kids Matter and Minds Matter from Australia, the Kiva anti-bullying program from Finland, but these have been implemented in other countries, the PATHS program, Zippy's Friends, Penn Resiliency, and there are others, but that they have been implemented across different countries. So in terms of implementation, we talk about a tiered delivery, so that we say you have programs for all children, and then you have more targeted programs for those children with specific needs. And I think that combination is quite important. Teacher training and support is really critical to deliver these. We need an educational policy that embraces that and that kind of makes it the core business of the school. So and we've been working in Ireland with the Department of Education, and we have a well-being framework in our schools. And so we've been working in developing resources for implementing that framework in terms of children's social and emotional development. Next, I want to move to the community. And here looking at community empowerment programs. These again would be across the life course, especially for from young to older people who are disadvantaged and socially excluded. There's a lot of impressive youth empowerment programs that can actually promote critical life skills. And these may be for children who have dropped out of the formal education system. And so children can learn in different ways. So for example, through arts or drama or sport or outdoor adventures. Also mentoring programs and social action projects that link at-risk young people with other community members and leaders who can provide support for them. And the evidence here is not as strong as in schools, but it is growing and it is emerging, and more structured approaches tend to result in quite positive impact, like Big Brothers, Big Sisters mentoring program, Communities That Care has been implemented in a lot of different countries, and youth social action. Also in relation to older people and those who are socially excluded, volunteering, befriending programs where both the people giving and taking both receive, intergenerational programs linking people across the generations, community gardening and creative arts, bereavement support, linking people virtually like we're doing today, harnessing the potential of online interventions to reach those who might be otherwise difficult to reach. The evidence here is promising about positive mental health outcomes that can be achieved from these programs. And here looking at just some examples like Men's Sheds, an initiative from Australia, or Act, Belong, Commit. And the emphasis is on mutual support, where people who have lived experience give the benefit of their experience to others, and there's a mutual and shared learning. Okay, I want to mention briefly also in terms of community empowerment, community microfinance and debt management programs. And these are primarily implemented in low and middle income countries, but they have quite impressive outcomes, particularly where the microfinance is combined with life skills training. And that's where you can then really get a kind of a big impact, where we promote life skills, resourcefulness and asset building. So the evidence is quite promising that they can impact on people's self-esteem and reduce levels of depression, but also then lead to improved health benefits like education, nutrition, and a reduced risk of violence and improving their economic well-being. So we have kind of interesting examples from Africa, from Pakistan, India, and there probably is from your country as well, and others. But I mean, it's interesting, these kind of programs are much needed in high income countries now as well, as a lot of people are dealing with the issue of managing debt and the mental health impacts of that. But the key thing here is that the microcredit must be combined with life skills training, and the interesting thing is that the best outcomes are achieved when the money is given to women, but that won't come as any surprise. Okay, so just on the remaining ones, I'll just go quickly through these. Looking at mentally healthy workplaces. Now, the workplace is a really important setting for promoting mental health of adults because we spend probably too much time there. And we're looking here at how mental health can be integrated into health and safety regulations. I mean, we know that work-related stress is a big issue. And also for people who experience mental health problems at work, is there sufficient support to kind of keep them in the workplace if that's what they want to do? So here there are a number of approaches, both kind of individual and organizational level approaches that have been put forward that can be quite effective in improving mental health of employees, but also reducing absenteeism and improving products. So it's good for the employees, but it's also good for the businesses and the workplaces. The WHO Healthy Workplace Framework gives an overarching model that has been used, and interesting, you might want to have a look at in the UK and Canada, they have these national standards for psychological health and safety in the workplace. So that idea of psychological health, you know, not being subject to bullying or harassment, having security in your workplace and being treated equitably. And so it emphasizes here the importance of supportive legislation and also buy-in from management is really critical in terms of making these program works, and of course reducing the stigma around mental health at work. Then looking at our health services, primary care is really important as the first point of contact with the health services. And here we want to ensure that mental health promotion is included as part of this, because primary care is often focused mainly on physical health. So here we want to make sure that mental health is included as part of routine consultations. And if there are mental health difficulties, that there's a space for these to be explored and that they can be identified and referred, because a lot of mental health problems are not identified early on or supported. And so also looking at strategies like social prescribing. And this is where we don't go in for prescription of pills all the time. It's looking at referrals to non-medical sources of community support, like be that arts, be it learning, exercise, social participation or social support. And in fact, we are rolling this out on a national basis in Ireland through our primary care and community services. So just making sure that mental health is given equal attention in the primary care setting. And likewise in relation to mental health services, again, that mental health promotion is valuable to people who are living with long-term mental disorders, and placing an emphasis on how people can be empowered around their own mental health and well-being. So this is very much like a recovery approach to mental health, where we put an emphasis on the lived experience of the person, and of course that we look at the whole person, not just their diagnosis, and it's looking at the needs of the whole person and ensuring that they have a good quality of life. So the WHO intervention guide provides kind of a range of different strategies for supporting service users, but also their carers and families around, improving the mental health of service users and making sure, I think it's about that there is a change in the culture of our services so that they become more mental health promoting. Reducing public stigma is really important, the stigma around mental health, and making sure that we can openly talk about mental health, but also that we understand mental health as being positive, a positive resource, and that we understand how we can promote and look after our own mental health and well-being. And here we have a number of countries have country-level campaigns to kind of mass promotion through different media, social media, television media, so where we can look at the importance of looking after your own mental health, how important that is. And when we have country-level campaigns combined with local actions, then we can see a real difference in terms of people's understanding of the importance of mental health and how they can promote their own mental health. So that's then brings us to the final section, which is to say, when we really need a kind of a mental health in all policies approach, so that mental health becomes part of a larger kind of set of government policies, social policies, and across different sectors, so that our environments are supportive of our mental health. We have good housing, good education, access to jobs, we have a safe living environment, and that we reduce inequity. All of this makes a big difference because the experience of inequity damages mental health, as does racism and discrimination. So public policies really do matter at that broader level. Now I'm just going to try and finish up. So that's what we mean about needing a whole of government approach. So the different sectors have a part to play in this if we're to address the social determinants of mental health, and a whole of societies, because there's a whole range of actors outside of the mental health sector that have a very important part to play in supporting our mental health, be it in terms of education, media, welfare, culture, local authorities. So the participation of all of government and the wider community in helping to create the conditions for positive mental health and well-being. So that brings us then to saying we really need to implement all the knowledge that we have. We need to bridge the implementation gap. We have the science, we have the evidence, and we really now need to look at how that knowledge can be translated into action. So by looking at effective implementation in the local context and supporting the policy and the practice and the capacity to deliver. So this is what I'm going to leave you with, is to say that if we want to embrace mental health promotion, we need to develop the capacity to deliver on this. And that means having policies that give us a mandate for action, that say, yes, promotion is important, we need to invest in this, and this is, we will work across sectors. We need the research to advance and support effective action in the local context, strengthening and expanding the evidence base, and looking at implementation and making sure that we monitor, the status of population mental health and well-being. And finally, and very importantly, we need the practice, because we need to align our capacity to deliver on the policies and what we know works. And that means having people on the ground who have the skills, the knowledge, and the abilities to deliver effective mental health promotion strategies, to work with communities and across sectors. So that is really vital, bridging the mental health and the public health competencies to do this. And of course, very importantly, we need to mobilize public engagement so that there's a broader understanding of the importance of mental health, and it becomes really central to population well-being and to government policy. So I will finish there, and thank you very much for listening to my presentation. Thank you.